When hinges creak in doorless chambers, and strange and frightening sounds echo through the halls. Whenever candlelights flicker, when the air is deathly still. Welcome, armchair Imagineers, to the Scary Adventures Podcast. Oh boy. Okay, so joining us tonight is Ghostface. How are you, Mr. Ghostface?
I'm just sitting over here drinking out of my Boba Fett mug. Thank you very much.
Right on, Ghostface. More power to you.
Just kidding, it's SandyClaws.
All right, so tonight's episode is going to be very interesting. We're going to be talking about nightmares, night terrors, and lucid dreamscapes. Now, Sandy, I'm not sure how much experience or how much knowledge you have in the lucid dream category. If you don't know much about it, well, prepare to get a little bit of a crash course, because I have two stories in particular that are going to dive deep into that.
All right.
One story just kind of based on, just based on my experiences in general, kind of like the things I experience when I do go into lucid dreams in one of three locations that I've kind of conjured up in my mind that I'd like to call dreamscapes that we'll talk about.
Okay.
We'll also be talking about the night terrors that both of us had as a kid. And then my last story is going to be when lucid dreams turn on you, which is a terrifying lucid dream I had, Sandy, that I'll get into the details of just to hype it up, where essentially what it was my subconscious kind of turning on me and trying to convince me that the lucid dream I was in was actually reality.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we'll get into details about that, but that crazy shit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Sandy, now when I brought up the topic of like nightmares and stuff, and I kind of just vaguely asked you, do you have any reoccurring nightmares that you had as a little kid? I've never seen you so scared, my friend. You stopped dead in your tracks and you went silent and pale.
I'm not sure if that was on air or off. I think
it was off air. It was off air.
Anyway, so this was a good 5+ years ago. We lived in this really strange neighborhood in this really old house. And it's the middle of the night and I'm fast asleep and I have this dream. And in this dream, and the way our house, our front, our kitchen was set up was, the front door, and then that leads right into the kitchen. And the front door had this piece of glass, this piece of blurry glass on it. It was kind of reflective almost. It had these little square panels in it. But it was all blurry. You couldn't really see outside.
So basically you could see like outlines of people, but you couldn't see the details, right?
You could see like their blurry outline, yes.
Yeah. I think the front door of the house I grew up in was like that.
Okay. All right. So then you have the counter right next to the door. So in this dream, me and my family were in the kitchen talking about something. Our cat was up on the counter for some reason, and I was sitting up on the counter next to her. She was sitting on my far left side, and she was looking over my shoulder. And she starts hissing at this blurry window in the door.
Oh.
And that was the first sign of bad news, is this cat hissing like a maniac. So I turn around, and then there is this horrifying thing staring. I can't remember if it was staring at me or just staring into the house in general, but it was staring. And this creature, for some reason, this glass on the door was not blurry anymore. It was not that reflective, blurry glass. It was completely clear, see-through. There were no curtains or anything, just one big plate of clear glass. and he had this really odd appearance. He looked like a mime, but he had this really abstract design with this square head and these sunken eyes and this huge smile. I think he had some kind of hat and some stringy hair, just black and white. That's basically the color. His colors, just black, a white face, like black eyeshadow and black hair, black lips, and he was like this abstract square head, except it was like a realistic, like those caricatures people make of like Charlie Brown, except looking realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like one of those. So it was really off. It was really creepy. And then the dream ended. I took one look at this thing looking at us in the window, and I woke up. And it was still the middle of the night. And I just laid there in bed for a very long time, just not moving, hoping that that thing was not like outside my bedroom window. That's it though. That's one of the scariest dreams I've ever had.
How long do you feel like it lasted?
The dream itself was, I'd say, if I had to guess, man, it's just hard to say. It felt like it was around like less than a minute long.
And how long did it feel like it was when it was going on?
Well, that's what I meant. It felt like it was only a few seconds.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Huh. And yet it sticks out in your memory that much. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, because this figure, he just had this unforgettably disturbing appearance, and it was just so off-putting. It just sticks out in my mind.
Okay, well, Sandy, it's really interesting because some of the visual details that you described kind of match my Boogeyman.
I'm sorry, just to go off one more thing.
Yeah, sure.
It's weird because I'm not afraid of clowns or mimes, which is really, really weird. I just thought I should point that out because I really have no fear of clowns or mimes or anything. I think they're stupid, actually.
This isn't real enough for you, Sandy.
I'm not real enough for you. It was real enough for Georgie. Oh, Bill.
All right. Okay, yeah, so my Boogeyman. So this has kind of been a story we've been building up through the different Scary Adventures podcasts since we've rebooted. So basically what happened was when I was really little, basically when I was first born to like 3 or 4 years old at the most, we lived in a 2-story townhouse, which had, a big staircase from the first floor to the second floor. It was like a steep staircase. Okay. And me being a little kid, I would oftentimes find myself crawling up there and then falling down.
Okay.
And so my mother wanted to put a stop to this. So my mother just was a brilliant parent. And she said, if you go upstairs without an adult, then the Boogeyman is going to get you and he's going to eat you. And I really want to stress the cannibalistic part of this. Like, I really want to stress that as a little baby, she put the idea of like a terrifying, like gnarly Boogeyman eating me alive.
So she actually said this to you. This wasn't a dream.
No. She said this to me. Yes. Okay. Yes. But this was definitely the catalyst to the dreams.
Yeah.
So I remember 2 of them very well, and then there's also a couple that I sort of vaguely remember, but essentially this Boogeyman was a reoccurring nightmare. So essentially what would happen is the first time I dreamt of him was probably to this day the most vivid memory that I've ever had, where basically from what I remember, and Sandy, the crazy thing about this is that to this day, like, Oh, it gives me chills even thinking about it, honestly, because to this day, I don't necessarily remember if I was dreaming or if I was awake. Because here's the thing. Like, the thing I do vividly remember, I was about 2 years old when this happened, and I vividly remember we were watching Disney movies downstairs in the living room, and we had pizza, and all these little cognitive details from that night, like, still stick in my memory, right? Even though I was so little. So basically, I remember falling asleep on the couch, and then the next thing I know, I wake up in my bed, and then I hear just a thunderous knocking at the front door, just like a really, really intense pounding, like knock, like
that alone is horrifying.
Yeah, just like, just pounding. And I looked down from my bedroom window, Sandy, because my bedroom window like directly overlooked the front door. And I saw him. I saw the boogeyman like from a story up. And he was like, here's how I would describe him. It's interesting because there's a couple qualities that you described in your mind that are present in my boogeyman. The long stringy hair, that's definitely present in my boogeyman. Kind of like the weird appearance. I know he had a very like scarred, like cut up face, and the most vivid, the hat too. Sandy, you mentioned the hat. What kind of hat was he wearing?
This guy was wearing some kind of, it wasn't a top hat, but it was just like a black. It's a stout little hat with a flat top and a brim that goes all the way around.
That sounds eerily similar to my guy. Because my guy also had a very distinct hat that wasn't quite a top hat.
It's the same character, Jumping Dreams.
Oh God, Sandy.
He waits for you at the door.
Oh my. So essentially all I remember about the dream was looking down and seeing that guy knocking on the door and, just trying to cover my ears, like trying to block out the sound of him pounding on the door. And
was he looking back at you, or was he?
No, he wasn't. He was just ferociously like pounding on, like really intent on the door. I never really saw his face. I only saw the sides of his face.
Oh.
So, all right. Story 2 with the boogeyman.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
What?
For the first one.
Yeah, that's it for the first dream. Yeah, that was just like kind of like, oh my God, there he is, and he is coming to get me. Like he's literally pounding on my door trying to get me.
And it's weird because you think about stuff like that, and it's like if some psycho is trying to come into your house to get you, he's not gonna knock on the front door. That's even more off-putting, It's
Right. Like this guy wasn't like pounding down the door trying to break in. He was just like really, really, really heavily knocking.
And
I remember he made a sound like a grunt, like a
someone needs to translate these things to film so people can see it.
I know, right? That'd be a great invention. Okay, so we moved from that townhouse about, I want to say, like a year or two after that dream happened.
Okay.
And we moved into a one-story house. I thought, like, okay, good. Like this house doesn't have a staircase. My days of dealing with the boogeyman are over. Nope. So basically what happened is, as a kid, I had this light up box where it was essentially like a spinning box with different shapes in it that lit up, and it would cast like lights and shadows of different shapes.
Yeah.
And it would cast this against the window, right? So I'd have my window open all night. And Sandy, to make a long story short, I mean, it's actually not a long story. This is actually very much in line with your mime story. So I open my eyes, right?
Yeah.
Like I wake up and of course, the motherfucker boogeyman is standing right there at the window, peering into my room.
Is it looking at you?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh. Same guy, same appearance?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
He's got like a sick kind of smile. Like kind of like I describe it as a hamburglar smile, you know, like the really weird like buck tooth, like, yeah, I'm gonna get your hamburgers, Ronald McDonald. Except
I see. Okay.
Except like I said, like super realistic. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I'm looking at Hamburglar now. Imagine if it was realistic, it'd look like Pennywise.
Kind of, yeah, a little bit. I mean, without the makeup.
Yeah. So he didn't have any makeup of any kind?
No, he did have scars on his face.
Okay. All right.
And an important detail that I kind of left out, he was wearing a black trench coat.
Okay. Did he have any kind of eyewear?
Honestly, not that I remember.
Okay. Alrighty.
And honestly, I mean, that's really it. Like, I saw him a couple more times in my dreams. I remember there was one time when I dreamt that I was going to the zoo, and he showed up at the zoo, and I kept, like, trying to push my parents along to, like, you know, to try and, like, you know, outpace him.
Yeah.
And he was, like, always, like, right behind us, and that was terrifying. I do remember one dream I had where it was in my grandparents' backyard, and he kept, like, throwing my aunt up into the air and then catching her and throwing her back up again.
That's odd.
Yeah, isn't that odd?
Yeah. I sent you a picture of what this guy reminds me of.
Nah, I mean, my guy was way scarier.
I imagine so. But so you have recurring dreams of this character. He'd just be doing different things each time.
Yeah, right. Like the first time he was knocking on the door, the second time he was staring through the window, the third time he was stalking us at the zoo, and then the fourth time, which was the most odd and kind of like supernatural, was he was like tossing my aunt up into the air and catching her and then tossing her back up again.
So the first time he's knocking on the door like he's trying to get into the house.
Uh-huh.
And the second time he's looking at the window like, haha, you haven't escaped me yet.
Yeah, and I almost think that him looking into the window is almost like kind of taunting me, like, oh, you know, like now you don't have an escape. Like now I can look right through your window from street level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas before he was like knocking on the door trying to get into my bedroom from the second story.
Yeah.
And then the zoo thing is like, I'm going to fucking follow you even outside of your house. Can you interpret the one with tossing my aunt up into the air?
That sounds... You know what it sounds? It sounds like some kind of like Freddy Krueger thing where he's just a character in everyday life, but he's the thing you're afraid of.
Uh-huh.
It's
the thing with the aunt, I think, is like if I were to interpret it, it's like him showing off that he has supernatural powers.
Huh.
And honestly, I'm sure there was probably at least one or two other times I dreamed about him, but those were the four that really stuck out to me. The zoo dream was probably the most scary out of all of them, to tell you the truth, because
escape.
Because basically, like, could you imagine dreaming a similar scenario but with the mime?
Yeah, like he knows where you are at all times, and there's no escape. You can't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like even at a happy-go-lucky zoo, he's still there.
All right, so that's about all I have with my boogeyman, Sandy. We've both kind of conquered our scariest night terrors. You want to continue with the childhood motif and get into one of your dreams from childhood?
I'm actually going to talk about a different one. I'm going to go with the one I actually didn't have. This is my sister had this.
Okay.
I found this just to keep in line with the whole tension we have going here with these characters. And again, this wasn't my dream, so I don't have any personal experience with this specific character, but my sister was absolutely terrified, and This happened about, I'd say, about a year ago, maybe.
Okay.
So she described everything in full. Basically, what this was our house. We live in a cul-de-sac, and across the street, there's a house, and there's a backyard, and there's a hill. There's no fence or anything. You can just go right down into the next neighborhood. And so my sister was out on the front patio, on the front sidewalk that goes to the street, and she sees across the street in this other yard, like at the top of this hill, she sees this clown. Now, the way she described this was he was a stout, like not exactly like a midget clown, but he was, again, he's like an abstract character, where it's like he's this square little thing who walk like this. That alone freaked me out, because he saw her and he starts.
Oh God!
So imagine this small, short little clown character who has this square-like appearance, who just sees you. He starts walking.
Okay, that is some Pennywise shit right there.
Yeah, I know. That's right. I just realized that it's like something out of it.
Like, seriously, it sounds more like a creature pretending to be a clown than an actual clown.
Yeah, exactly. But then she came inside and locked the door. I think that was pretty much it. But I've always thought of this. I've always tried visualizing what this thing might have looked like. But I don't know. It's this square little grotesque clown creature who walked with some kind of disability. Yeah. Honestly, I'm not gonna forget that. I'm not sure why. Just stuck out to me.
Well, speaking of like dreams that family members have had that stick out to me, my dad vividly described a very a very realistic looking but anthropomorphic big bad wolf from the Three Little Pigs staring through his window.
From the Disney cartoon?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like with the giant teeth and the big long fucking red tongue and everything.
It was realistic?
Yeah, it was slightly more realistic. Like, it was basically, like, imagine if Disney did a Three Little Pigs remake and what the Big Bad Wolf would look like in CGI.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
So, yeah, once again, it's just kind of like these characters that kind of permeate with you. Yosemite Sam actually haunted my dreams for a period of time.
Really?
Because my little brother is autistic, and so we grew up going camping, and we had like a mobile home, right?
Yeah.
And I had this dream like several times, like at least 5 or 6 times over the course of my childhood, where I'd wake up and my little brother would be behind the wheel of the RV driving it, and everyone else was like out of the RV, and he like drove it all the way back to my hometown. But then when we got to my hometown, we'd be pulled over by a cop, and every time, Sandy, that cop would be Yosemite Sam.
What?
Yeah.
Pull over right now. I'm gonna write you up.
Right?
That's odd.
I kid you not. Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Okay, so Sandy, let me ask you a question. What do you know about lucid dreams?
Pretty much, I haven't had any that stick out to me in particular, but I do know that it's just dreams where you're in full realization that you are in a dream. Not necessarily trying to get out of said dream, but just the full realization that you are in a dream.
No, I mean, the goal is definitely to stay in the dream for the most part.
I guess in some situations.
Yeah. Okay, so lucid dreaming is something that I got really into right around the time I graduated high school, like in my late teens, early 20s. I study it a lot. I still study it. I still try and practice it. So, Sandy, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out like the 3 main locations, because here's the thing that really comes in handy with lucid dreaming is to remember the abstract imagery and be able to recreate it in your mind.
Okay.
So I have, for example, I have a lucid dreaming version of just a generic Disney resort.
That's awesome.
It's basically a smorgasbord of like everything. One of the big defining features is that it's got this huge like Matterhorn mountain that's like way, way, way bigger than the one at Disneyland, that you have to take the monorail. Like, you have to take the monorail around the mountain just to get to the resort.
Wow.
And it's like this big sort of like welcome to Jurassic Park kind of like, you know, like welcome to Disney.
It's like this big monument. That's
yeah,
awesome.
right. One thing I vividly remember about this is that the Main Street has a carousel right in the middle of town square.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that you wouldn't see normally. Let me see. You know, it's like there's like weird little details. Like there's always a long underground tunnel that guests can take from park to park and resort to resort. Like, okay. You know how Disney World has the underground tunnels?
Yes.
Yeah, well, these are like accessed by the public, right? So I've had a lot of dreams where it's like I'm on a vacation at this dream Disney resort, and I'm like taking this tunnel system to get to from my hotel to the park, or vice versa.
All right.
Okay. Let me see. I'm just trying to think of other details there.
Is Alice there?
I would like to think that Alice is there.
Yeah. What about Haunted Mansion or Pirates?
You know what? Honestly, it's honestly more the vibe that sticks out to me more than anything else.
Okay.
There's a really elaborate Toontown. There's a really elaborate Fantasyland. Like Fantasyland and Toontown are all kind of like interconnected.
That works for me. I love that.
Just trying to jog my memory on this one. Again, it's weird because I feel like I'm talking about a place that I've actually been to. And I have been to it in my mind. And like I said, Sandy, the key to this is sort of visualizing it in your mind when you're awake, right? Like, you know, like keeping a waking memory of it.
Yeah.
Like all the little, like, I know the Tiki Room is like really, really different. Like the Tiki Room is like some sort of bizarre like cafe.
All right. That'd be really cool, like a Tiki Room cafe. Like with singing birds up in the...
Yeah. That's actually originally what it was going to be. So maybe that's why I had the dream of it. Actually, that might be part of the dream, Sandy, is concepts that never made it into Disney parks. Because if I remember correctly, there might be like a haunted mansion on Main Street, which again is a concept that was originally kind of thrown around.
Okay.
I don't remember much of Tomorrowland. I know there's a really elaborate California adventure. Yeah, that's about it. And then Knott's Berry Farm is basically, that is like one giant fairground.
All right.
I don't know how else to describe it. It's like all the rides are there, that it's on like one big long midway.
Okay.
Like one big long field. Like there's like a curve in the middle of it. I don't know. Am I making any sense?
I guess kind of.
Like basically the whole thing is in like the main walkway is in a shape of a U.
Okay.
So basically you're walking like back and forth from this U to get to all the different rides.
All right.
Is that making any sense?
Yeah, it is. I see it now. Hello?
Yeah, and I guess the bizarre thing about that U is just, you know, just the layout. I actually, if I remember correctly, and like I said, it's weird, Sandy, because my Knott's Berry Farm is kind of like an amalgamation of what I thought Knott's was going to be like before I actually visited it, and also my local fairgrounds.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And it's weird because whenever I dream of Knott's Berry Farm, even after I visited it, I always dream of that particular Knott's Berry Farm, the one where it's like from before I actually had a feel for what the park is like in person, mixed with the local fairground. So there's like this big stage in the middle of this U, right? And it's like a fairground stage. And there's like concerts that go on it every night.
Huh.
It's so different. Like I said, like the rides are there. Like you have the log ride, you have Ghost Rider, all that. You know, it's all there and accounted for. It's just in a very, very different layout.
I see.
Yeah, it's really weird. Okay, and then finally the Santa. What?
I know when I first heard Knott's Berry Farm, and when we were gonna go back in the day, I thought it was like a legitimate farm. Like,
yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah, I thought like, what are we gonna do? Like tromp around a bunch of boysenberry bushes?
I know, that's exactly what I thought. Like all I thought was berries and a farm. Is there some kind of farm?
That's pretty much what it was in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that and like the chicken dinner restaurant. Oh God. Okay, so Sandy, one other Lucid Dreamscape to go over is Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk.
Okay.
Now, this is by far the most vivid one because A, this is the theme park that I've been going to the longest in my life because this is one that my parents took me to very early on in life, like way before Disney.
Okay.
So basically, the Santa Cruz Boardwalk, it's, you know, it's just like a typical boardwalk where there's about a mile's worth of carnival rides, and there's a coaster and some dark rides, you know, and a midway and carnival games, and it's all along the stretch of beach. Now, in my Lucid Dreamscape version of the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, the stretch of beach is replaced with the Russian River. So instead of like a nice, like, you know, instead of like a nice beach, we've got like this green, you know, like this green ugly river going through it.
That's odd. Okay.
And there's also an island. This is like something straight out of BioShock. There's an island that's kind of like just far out enough that you could actually swim to it, where there's just a lighthouse on it.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Just like a big lighthouse. Well, it's not nice. It's freaking ominous.
Well, it does sound ominous, but at the same time, it sounds nice. I mean, I like ominous things.
Yeah, right. And it's just like this lighthouse just like looms over everything else.
Oh, what was it, like an old lighthouse or?
Yeah, it's like an old, really, really tall lighthouse.
Cool. Okay. Was that
so let me see. And then also the rides themselves are very elaborate. Like they're they're like usual flat rides, except they're like more elaborate. Like for example, oh God, I don't even know how to describe it really. Like there's like the Ferris wheel will be like a double Ferris wheel.
It sounds actually pretty cool, but
it is cool. It is cool. You know, there will be like really elaborate like flat rides, like stuff that I can't even really describe to you, just like really far out like dreamscapey stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. That all fits into the mold of what a boardwalk and what rides that you would expect to see at a boardwalk would look like, but just all very contorted. One thing I do remember is that there's a really big log flume in the pirate area, where the pirate area right now is like a big mini golf course. And in my lucid dreamscape, there's a like I said, there's like a log flume through the pirate stuff.
All right.
Let me see. I mean, that's really about it. That's about all I can describe, except for the fact that there's a big ass hill that's like right on the edge of this boardwalk, right? Like a huge hill with a hotel right on the top of the hill. And I've had several dreams where I've woken up at the hotel and seen the boardwalk from the bottom of the hill and wanted to go down to the boardwalk but couldn't find a way down the hill, and it would be like really frustrating. So that's just kind of an example of the kind of stuff I can conjure in lucid dreams. And like I said, the key to lucid dreams for me is familiar locations, and I really have stuck to just those three. And I guess maybe that's a reason why my mind, subconsciously or not, chooses to stick to the weird, like U-shaped carnival version of Knott's Berry Farm as opposed to real Knott's Berry Farm, is that it's an off kind of like dreamlike location that's very vivid and memorable to me, to the point where I can like really pick apart all the details and all the individual settings and elements of it, you know, and just kind of it's not as easy as just like turning off a light and going into it, but if you're in the right frame of mind and you're in the right like sleeping pattern and you really concentrate hard on that location, it's not really that difficult to reach it. And from there, once you become more and more familiar with the location, it'll be really easy to just go nuts and, you know, like, you know, really have fun with it. Because I remember having, like, of course it's a dream, so it's all very, you know, it's all very, like, time is all very relative, right, in a dream. But I remember having, like, trips to my Disney resorts that felt like it was, like, a couple days. Like in the context of a dream.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
What rides you go on?
And that's what you can do with lucid dreaming if you can control it. You know what I mean? Is you can, like, theoretically just have a vacation. Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go do pirates, and then I'm gonna go do the Matterhorn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gonna go over to California Adventure through the tunnel system and do California Screamin'.
What a story, Mock.
What a story, Mock. Okay, speaking of stories, Sandy, let's get into your next one.
Well, my next one is pretty short. Back when we lived in this this big this townhouse kind of house, really. I had this big bed, and the house. It's hard to think back on it now. It sticks out to me, but really, it's just we lived in this house in Virginia, and I had this dream this one night where, for some reason, this mummy was just running around the house. And
oh, that's pleasant.
It wasn't like some super grotesque horror movie mummy, but it's just like like a cartoon. It's like some guy with bandages on,
like a Scooby-Doo mummy.
Yeah, it's like a Scooby-Doo mummy just running around. Except it wasn't a cartoon; it was the actual thing. But yeah, it was just going at it.
Here's kind of a reoccurring thing I'm noticing with our dreams, Sandy, is kind of is sort of like grotesquely realistic live action interpretations of cartoons.
Here's the thing I'm noticing. I'm noticing with all of these that they want to get in the house, but they can't.
Right.
Because with all three of these, I'm not exactly sure what the mummy was doing running around the house, but I'm sure he would have liked to get in. I mean, he's, with the mime, he's looking inside the house. With the boogeyman, he's looking, twice inside the house. Dreams. And then
it gets to a point where he's in my backyard and he's just straight out in public.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's freaky stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I have, though. That's all that comes to mind.
Now, you mentioned panic pre-show.
Yeah, I did. I guess that's what we should close on then, right?
Well, that, and then I also have one other thing about my lucid dreams.
Okay. Well, this next one here is kind of short as well, but it's something
that's okay, because I also have things to say about it.
All right. I've two incidents that stick out to me, both kind of different. I guess they're pretty different. Anyways, I was sleeping on the couch one night in the living room, and I have this dream that I have to count to some obscure, super ridiculous number, like 1,100,000,000,000 something. And I have to count to that number in less than a second, or else I'm going to die.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It just sounds like the premise out of a horror movie or something.
Yeah, it's like something.
You want to play a game?
Yeah, exactly. It's just that sense of panic, like it's asking the impossible.
Right,
so
right.
You don't have an option other than to just die.
Oh God.
But you can sure as heck try, and you can get to 1, and then and this other incident, which is a bit different, but it also happened, when I was asleep on the couch. I had fallen asleep while watching the Johnny Depp Lone Ranger movie.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah, which is weird enough on its own. And I woke up. The movie was still playing. And I woke up and I was just freaking out because I was fully awake. I guess not fully awake, but I was just, it's like I was in the real world, but also I was in this other world at the same time. Like okay. I was still in my dream, but I was completely aware of my surroundings. It was really weird, and it was really freaking me out. I was actually quite terrified.
Oh,
like there was these giant trees that were chasing me, and it was like I was still in my dream, but then I got up and I was walking around. It was weird, but yeah, I've never watched that movie again. I'm not going to because it's
all right.
Probably,
go ahead.
Probably has something to do with it.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, so that is another interesting thing, Sandy, is kind of the whole idea of like being. Like, have you ever heard of sleep paralysis?
I have, yes.
Yeah, that I've experienced a few times as well, where it's essentially like like your mind is awake, but your body is asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's pretty freaky, especially when you're like trying to call for someone and you literally like you don't have the muscle capacity to actually call out.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
that's
okay,
cool.
and also one note on the panic thing, Sandy. One of the things that kind of reoccurs for me in terms of panic is when I'm trying to get a hold of someone on the phone, either because I need them to pick me up or because I'm worried about them and I want to see where they are. You know what I mean? Or I need to just get a hold of them to, just pressing circumstances. You know what I mean? And when I panic on the phone in the dreams, it's like I will misdial the number so many times, like consistently. It is the most stressful thing in the world. And phones are kind of like phones and technology are an interesting kind of subject of dreams in their own right, I feel like, because a lot of times they don't often work. Like I've heard a lot of times people say to look at clocks when you're in a dream, and if the clock is garbled and you can't read it, that's a sign that you're in a dream.
Oh. If only I could remember that when I'm having a dream.
Mm-hmm. Another tip I would give you is if you notice a family member who is in the house with you when they weren't in the house with you when you went to sleep. So, for example, I once had a lucid dream where my grandpa, this was during when my grandpa was on a trip to Reno, And so I knew he wasn't in the house. And my dream started with my grandpa walking inside my room, right? And I was literally able to freeze my grandpa with my mind because I was like, wait a minute. Like, he's not supposed to be here. He's on vacation. I'm in a dream right now because he's here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish I could do that. Like, it's weird because with dreams, like I had this one dream where I was like, it's like some apocalypse, you know, post-apocalyptic world where everything's falling apart, and I'm sitting in just some diner, and you never stop to think about, okay, how did I get here? Why am I not, you know, back where I was yesterday? It's like, you never question anything. You just go with it as if it's as if you're like tapping into some kind of alternate reality where everything, your whole world is completely changed.
I hear you. Okay, Sandy, so the last dream I'm going to end out on is by far the most intense, and I am going to call it When Lucid Dreams Turn on You.
All right.
Okay, so basically the extent of this dream is that I am essentially trying to convince other members of my family that I am in a dream. And they get very angry at me and very insistent, like, what are you talking about? You're fucking crazy. You're insane. This is not a dream. And I'm like, no, I know it is. Like I tell you, I know it is. Let me prove it to you. And so basically I go outside, right? And I pick up a rock. Like, it's a pretty substantially sized rock, maybe about a 10-pound rock. And I'm like, and I say to my family members, I'm like, okay, I'm going to prove to you that this is a dream because I'm going to throw this rock and it is going to go like all the way down the block.
Okay.
Right? Like, I couldn't possibly do that in the waking world. And I throw the rock and it levitates for a second and then it drops. And then I see the chimney of my house start to shake, like start to kind of rumble. And my family members just come towards me and they're just like, this isn't a dream, Tyler. Like, you know, like, you're crazy. Like, you just have to realize that this is the real world and there's nothing you can do about it. And I'm like, no, I know this is a dream. And it was one of the few times, Sandy, where I was in a lucid dream and I kind of realized I was in a dream, but at the same time, my subconscious was actively fighting with me. And that's the thing about dreams, Sandy. Another important point to hit on with dreams is, of course, the people in your dreams. If you see faces in your dreams, it's a face that you've seen in real life. That's a theory that I pretty much subscribe to. Even if it's just like you saw someone at a passing glance on the bus or something like that. And B, for people are basically a representation of your subconscious. So if you have a conversation in your dream, what's happening is you're essentially having a conversation directly with your subconscious. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So essentially, my subconscious was telling me, you're wrong, you're crazy, this is a dream, don't wake up because you're already awake.
That's freaky as heck.
Yeah, and of course I was just trying to wake up from it, and I eventually did, but yeah. So that is kind of like one of the dangers of lucid dreaming, I think, is it once you get so adept at it, it can sort of fool you for reality in certain circumstances. I mean, I don't think there's any real like physical danger behind it or anything like that, but mentally I think it could possibly screw you up if you're not careful. If you dive too deep into it. All right. Final thoughts on this, Sandy.
Well, I have one other incident that
go ahead.
I didn't personally experience, but very brief. This is years and years ago, over 10 years ago. My mom was having this conversation with the next door neighbor, a very weird person. And this next door neighbor said, we lived in this apartment. And this apartment, you enter through the back. to the back door. Really, you can enter through the back door. That's the common place to enter, and you walk up these stairs, these old stairs, up this balcony. And basically, it's like one big deck, and all the doors are connected, leading to different buildings. And this lady said that she saw me and my sister and I sitting, like, standing out on the porch, looking out, like, over the town or the neighborhood, whatever. Yeah, it was the neighborhood, because there was a neighborhood behind us. We were just looking out, like, into space. It's like standing there. I don't think she was telling the truth. I think she was crazy.
Weird.
But yeah, because I've never been known to sleepwalk, and at least I don't think I have. But you're talking about physical danger. I guess if you sleepwalk, then yeah, that you're probably in physical danger, depending on where you are, what you're doing, and what.
Right, and I've never really sleptwalked before. I mean, quite frankly, I've been blackout drunk before, but that's about the closest I've come to sleepwalking. But
yeah, that's all I had. Is, I guess, dreams are weird. I guess the way I like to look at it is, again, it's like you're tapping into some kind of alternate reality.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Especially if like it's a lucid dream, you're in a different reality and you're trying to get back to your previous reality that you know.
Mm-hmm. So Sandy,
what?
1 week from tonight, my friend.
Yeah.
1 week from tonight, we will be at Disneyland. We will be doing a Scary Adventures at Disneyland. We will actually be doing it at the witching hour at midnight on Main Street, where they'll actually let you stay for an hour. So Sandy, I've got a lot of Main Street stuff we can look into. We can actually kind of also look at the other creepy locations of the park from Main Street.
It's not going to be live though. We got to film this with our cameras.
Yeah, we're not going to be live. That's an important thing to know. I'll try and get it uploaded by Friday night, because Friday night I'll be back at Monkey's house, and I should have access to his computer to upload.
Okay.
So yeah, look for that, folks, because that will be an in-park Scary Adventures. That's going to be very exciting. And Sandy and I will be meeting each other for the first time, which, Sandy, I'm just giddy about, my friend.
Me too.
Okay, so foolish Imagineers, that'll do it for tonight's journey. But be sure to hurry back, and don't forget your death certificate.